What's going on, guys? This is Real Deal Fantasy HQ with your boy LQ back in for another great episode. Today's episode is Deshaun Watson bust alert. I hate to put him on this list, but there's obvious questions that we have for Watson. Him finishing QB5 was all good and dandy last season, but he had D-Hop last season. So the Texans, obviously, if you're living under a rock and you have no type of knowledge of what happened, D-Hop now plays for Arizona. So with that question, that's looming over him, what will Watson do this next season? So that's what I'll be covering. ADP expectations. I don't want to waste any more time, so let's get right into the episode. So today, Deshaun Watson, I hate to put him on this list, but it needs to be addressed. Let's get this cleared out right now. This isn't based on his talent. This is based on our expectations, him finishing QB5, him still going in the 5th round and, with his ADP. I just believe he's not going to live up to that ADP. That draft investment is a little too high for me. So it is a little bit of a price check. It's like, do I take a QB with all these questions around him, with him losing probably one of the best wide receivers in the game? Do I take him in the 5th round? I don't know if I can pull that trigger just yet. I'm still a Deshaun Watson believer, but it's just that him losing D-Hop, it does rub me the wrong way. So they did bring in, a couple of guys, which is cool. They bring in Randall Cobb, they bring in Brandon Cooks, but there's still questions. Most of these guys, they've been wide receiver 2s all their careers. You know what I mean? So it's not like they had to be the number 1 option. Like Randall Cobb comes in, he had the highest, ranking out of all the other guys, actually finishing wide receiver 44. But the last time we seen, Randall Cobb be relevant to anything, for him to be a top 10 wide receiver, not many people know. He finished 8th in 2014, but that was so many years behind him. So him coming in at 29, about to be 30, year 10 of his career, it doesn't make me feel like Randall Cobb comes in to maintain, Watson's elite status and for him to be a tier 2 quarterback. So most of these wide receivers have been wide receiver 2. Like, I'm talking reality. I'm not talking fantasy yet. Like, they've been wide receiver 2s of their team or wide receiver 3s. Like, you know what I mean? So they haven't had the chance to actually step up to take that wide receiver role. So if we look at Cooks, so let's talk when he was on the Patriots. That's probably the only time I can say that Brandon Cooks was probably like a wide receiver 1. But let's not fool ourselves. Let's remember Gronk was there. Gronk was still the guy. Gronk was still the go-to in the end zone. You know what I mean? But Gronk was also hurt as well. So that's why Cooks kind of excelled to be that wide receiver 1 in his career. But let's look at him with the Saints. You know what I mean? Like, Michael Thomas comes in. He beats him out 121 targets. Brandon Cook come in at 116. That's all good and dandy. But the next season, they trade him to New England. So there's that. So, Brandon Cooks is on his 4th team in like 5 years, people. So, like, there's a reason why he's constantly on the move. He doesn't bring that wide receiver 1 out of, the team that they want. Like, don't get me wrong. The Saints offense was high power that year, people. And like, Brandon Cooks definitely was a nice addition to that, but they traded him. So let's talk about when he was on the Rams. He went into a 3-headed monster situation. He had Gurley, he had Robert Woods, he had Kupp, and etc. So I don't want to lead with this, narrative that he's injury prone, because he's not really injury prone. He does have the concussion issues, which we will have to be wary, have to be aware of when we're drafting a Watson, we're drafting Brandon Cooks, you know what I mean? So it's not like Cooks, he does bring a nice weapon to the table for Watson to at least maintain some type of relevancy in the top 5 or even top 10. But honestly, I think Watson's going to struggle this year, with Cooks, with Fuller, with Cobb, with Kiki, you know what I mean? And it's like, all these guys are great. And Will Fuller's another guy that cannot stay healthy either. And we want this guy to stay healthy because we know when he balls out, he balls out. And 9 times out of 10, he's balling out on our bench. So it's rarely that we ever start him knowing his history. We always draft him. We're always the guys that draft Will Fuller. We draft him at, appropriate spot in the draft. But it's kind of like, God damn, bro, we want you to stay healthy for the full season so we can get those 40-point games, 53-point games like you blew up on the Falcons. Like, we want you in our starting lineup to be our wide receiver 2 or flex or whatever the case may be, but we just cannot trust you. We've been burned year after year. So this is probably Will Fuller's last chance, with the Texans before he's probably shipped off and never heard of again, because I don't think any other team is going to pay him the money that he's probably looking for, or even close to what he's looking for, being that he has this injury history. So there's that. And then again, Kenny Stills, he wows us probably like every 8 weeks. You know what I mean? Another guy that was a wide receiver too for Miami, and then they shipped him off to Houston. He still is playing in the background, but of course you're going to play in the background when you have D-Hop in front of you. And then there's Kiki. There's not really much I can touch on Kiki because we haven't seen a full season out of him since he came into the league. I think it's like year 3 or 4 where, he hasn't had a full season yet. So there's that. It's like, how are we going to see Watson be set up for success if none of these guys can stay healthy? I can see him literally coming down to maybe a Brandon Cooks and Randall Cobb for the remainder of the season. And they don't bring really elite status to make Watson be good. And I feel like with D-Hop leaving, it does leave a little stench of Watson. You know what I mean? Like, I'll say it like this. Like, I think Watson needed D-Hop more than D-Hop needed Watson, because we've seen D-Hop eat regardless with a Tom Savage people. Like, we've seen, D-Hop do some unbelievable things with some, background, QB. So Watson, I definitely think he's going to struggle this year going in that 5th round. I'd rather, honestly, if I'm going to take a QB in the 5th round, which I usually don't, it'll probably be Russell Wilson. You know what I mean? That'll be my backup. You know what I mean? If I'm going to not gamble on Watson. And I'm not saying do not draft Watson at all. That's something I got to keep stressing when people watch these type of videos. I'm not saying do not draft him. He's just not going to live up to his ADP. He's not going to, be a great 5th round investment. Now, you can wait a little bit later, or you might miss out on your league mates, still grabbing him in the 5th round. That's fine. You're not missing too much. The only thing you're missing is a headache week to week. So with that being said, we have to look at, the stats. We got to keep it a bean, because Watson is efficient when he's rolling out of the pocket. You know what I mean? So when he had when he had D-Hop, that was the 30% of the time that he was targeting when him rolling out of the pocket. Now, I can't say that Brandon Cooks or Will Fuller will be as effective as that, be as good as a D-Hop, but, there's a chance. There's a chance these guys can ball out. But if we're looking at their rankings of their wide receiver core right now, so we have Brandon Cooks. He finished wide receiver 61 with 14 games. We had Kenny Stills, wide receiver 60. Will Fuller, wide receiver 53. Randall Cobb, like I said, had the best, wide receiver 44. And then Kiki at 105, being that he was hurt, and et cetera. So the fact that I could sit here and say that Randall Cobb had the best ranking out of all these other wide receivers last season is kind of like, it's not sitting too pretty. Honestly, Randall Cobb probably won't finish wide receiver 44 ever again in his career, being that he was with Dallas. That's a high caliber offense. And if I had to compare, who had the best offense in Texas, obviously I'm going to give it to Dallas. So there's that. So, of course, with him coming into the situation with a terrible coach, maybe I could even say a terrible organization for even them actually letting D-Hop go because he asked for more money. Does he not deserve it? That's the real question. He's probably one of the best, wide receivers they will ever come across. So why not pay him, make him happy, let him stay? Like, come on now. Now you got Bill O'Brien, mediocre coach, dumb decisions, and him having a personal vendetta with D-Hop just because he asked for more money is retarded. So I think they were more scared of D-Hop influencing Watson, to want more money to keep him happy as well. But I could see Watson on the move very soon. I think he probably wants out of Houston, and that'll be something to see for the, next couple of years coming through to see if he actually stays. But, it's just going to be a very, very hard year for him. And I don't want to be part of it for the simple fact that if I'm going to take that draft investment, I need to know this is a start and forget. This is a lock-in. This is a, I don't have to worry about his wide receivers. I don't have to worry about, anything else going on in the background with the organization, head coach, et cetera, et cetera. But I will say David Johnson, him coming there, he does bring me a little bit of warmth that I can take a Watson later than the 5th round, being that he might add some type of fuel to him. He keeps him relevant somewhat. And he's definitely going to be used as like how he is used in Arizona to be the pass catching back. Also the balance between him running the ball and catching the ball, et cetera. He does bring a security blanket to Watson. So that's good news there. So I probably have to say if Will Fuller stays healthy, that'll be a great addition. Brandon Cooks will most likely stay healthy, but it's also the concussions that we need to worry about to keep in mind. because that's something that doesn't go away. Like we've seen wide receivers or even tight end Jordan Reed deal with concussion. It's not something that goes away. Wes Welker, like the little guys like that. So it's like you need to just have that in the back of your mind when you're drafting Brandon Cooks or even a Watson. Just keep in mind of the overall offense of what's going on. Because if you just go in it blind, do no research, and just be like, look, I'm taking Watson because he's now considered a big name. He's definitely like, he drops out of the tier 2 quarterbacks in my name. The tier 1s are obviously Patty Mahomes and, Lamar Jackson. He falls out of that tier 2 of on the climb, being that with the wide receiver core that he has. And I think he'll finish top 10. He will finish top 10. It's kind of hard not to finish top 10 when you're Deshaun Watson, and he has great talent. So, again, this isn't a knock at his talent. This is a knock at everything surrounding him. So there's that. But I really don't have much more. Just draft with caution with Watson. I would hate for you to grab him in the 5th round when he could have went in like the 6th or 7th round. You know what I mean? That's a more comfortable spot that I'm willing to take him, because I just don't believe in this fast wide receiver group that runs a 4-3, blah, blah, blah. But you got 3 guys that are most likely not going to be available to you come week 6, 7, 8. Let's talk playoffs. Let's talk longevity. Are you okay with going into week 13, round 1, into the playoffs where it's like, damn, Deshaun Watson has Randall Cobb and Kiki. Let's say he makes it a whole season. He has Kiki QT. I'm not going to be like, damn, that's what I need right now. And then, like I said, David Johnson does bring something to the table. Let's just scrap last year and say he was in a bad system. It just didn't work out. And maybe he has a bounce back year. David Johnson, somebody that I'm buying in the later rounds. I'm not, doing any reaching or anything like that. It's crazy that he still went in the 1st round last year. But I obviously he's not going this year. But I definitely will draft with caution with Watson, but he will bust people. He's not going to live up to that ADP. And I suggest you look elsewhere. I suggest that, you just, again, draft with caution. And that's all I got for you guys today. So I'll see you guys next week for another great episode of Real Deal Fantasy HQ with your boy LQ. Peace.